Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Smith. Welcome to Nurse Deck Podcast. Today, we are interviewing Bailey Estes. Hi there, Bailey.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Good. We are excited to interview you. Can you tell us, how did you get started in nursing? What led you to cardiovascular nursing?
I originally never saw myself as a nurse. I knew I always wanted to help people and do something that was dynamic and changing every day. So my first few years of college was just kind of exploring different options, looked into psychology, kind of confused on what I wanted to do. But my grandpa actually was pretty sick with cardiovascular disease my second year in college. So I was going to school in the city. So I was going to school in the city where he was getting all his treatments and at the hospital quite a bit. So I helped out my mom, I helped out my grandma with him, just trying to be there for support. And so one day they're like, you should be a nurse. You'd be really great at this. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's for me. I don't want to touch people. Like, people are weird and gross. And went home that night and thought about it. And I was like, I think they're right. I think my mom's right. Like, I want something that helps people, something that is new and dynamic. So I got my nurse's assistant and was able to work at that same hospital that treated my grandpa and learned from the cardiovascular nurses there, and have just always stayed in that specialty.
Okay, so you didn't know at first what you wanted to do. You thought about psychology, and then sure enough, your grandpa got sick with CVD, cardiovascular disease, and your family said, hey, you should look into medical field. So you started off as an NA, did I hear you right? Nursing assistant? And you
Yes.
the nurses, and then you ultimately became a nurse?
Yes, I had got my CNA and then worked for a year while I did some classes online, then got my LVN. Once I was an LVN, worked on a telemetry floor while I worked on my RN. So
Good for you.
just about every stair step that you could.
That's awesome.
It was nice because I worked full time throughout it. So it was great experience.
Yeah, I think everyone should work a little bit as an NA, CNA. They are frontline staff. They are one of the first to pick up on a patient issue, and it gives you a different perspective of things once you become a nurse, I think.
Exactly. It was something whenever I knew, I was like, okay, I think I want to be a nurse, but I was like, let me try this first just to make sure. I was like, if I can be a CNA, I can definitely go on and be a nurse. But especially when I went to school, you could tell the students who had been to CNAs were much more comfortable when it came to time for clinicals and talking to patients. It really is good. And I look back on those days fondly of that interaction that I got to have with those patients.
It definitely makes a difference. So you ended up doing clinical setting, and then you ended up doing clinical research. How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, that was one of those other things where I thought that I would never end up doing or seeing myself doing. I worked in the cath after I got my RN, transferred down and worked in the cath lab. And after a couple years of doing that, started to go into a couple of conferences, just trying to gain more knowledge about cardiovascular disease, PAD, peripheral arterial disease, and worked really closely with the physician that's like, hey, like, we've got some cool cases. If you want to make some case reports, why don't you write them up? And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So really had a lot of mentorship from physicians within my institution that helped me out a lot, really invested. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't know anything about research or even case reports. So kind of worked our way up, did some retrospective studies, just looking at outcomes of our patients and how we can make things better. And I really enjoyed it. I found it exciting. So from there, it's just slowly grown over the past couple of years. And we now have a full research department within our institution, and looking at partnering with different industries and other facilities. So it's exciting to see how it's grown. And it, like I said, something I never thought I'd see myself doing, but yeah, never say never. You never know what's going to catch your interest.
You ended up becoming a nurse. Initially thought you'd do psychology. Then you ended up doing NA to LPN to RN, and now you're doing clinical research. Never thought you'd do it, and here you are.
Right. Never. And if it asked me a couple years ago about research, I was like, that's so boring. I would never do that.
Yeah. And then mentorship, you said, from a physician, and that definitely makes a difference.
It really does. And especially like I work in a more rural place. It's not an academic setting. So, it's really important to have that buy-in and people to really lift you up, because it helps me to continue on with my education and really aspire to be more than just, not just say like just a nurse, but to really look deeper into it and how I can treat patients, interact with their care, but also make our facilities better. And I really have enjoyed that.
Yeah, you can probably dive deeper into the whys. Like if you know the research behind things, you understand why certain treatment works best for this or that. So,
yes.
Yeah. So Bailey, what do you think are your biggest accomplishments in terms of your clinical studies in treating peripheral artery disease and critical limb ischemia?
I'd have to say the biggest accomplishments have, even though in the grand scheme of things may seem small, but are big to me, of looking at our patient population, gaining a bigger understanding of who they are, what kind of comorbidities they have, what are their social determinants of health, really putting that into play when they come in and we treat them. When you understand that all as a whole, you're able to treat them better and anticipate their needs before they leave the hospital. Some of the research that we did looking at the amputation population in our hospital, one of the studies that we did looked at amputation patients within our hospital, and from that we saw that we needed to do some more interventions to better care for these patients. So from that, we developed our own PAD and CLI program to help navigate these patients while they're in the hospital, so they don't end up falling through the cracks.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about the risk factor modification for like PAD, CLI. Like, I'm sure you do education on like diabetes management, high blood pressure control, smoking cessation. Is a lot of that play a part?
Yes, all of it plays a really big part. We have the medical management part, but we also have revascularization therapies. But it all comes hand in hand, and really the patient education and understanding part is the biggest hurdle that we're trying to overcome, of having them understand why you need to stop smoking, why you need to control your diabetes, and helping give them those resources to take a little bit of control over their comorbidities, because they're just like, they have the same comorbidities as our cardiac patients. So we try to help them understand, but it's a work in progress, but our nurses play a really big role in that, and especially recognition of for these patients, because sometimes they don't realize they have a problem, but when you put eyes on them, you're like, okay, we need to do something.
Yes, education's a big part of it. So you are the chair of the American College of Cardiology CV Communications Committee. How did that come about, and what is your goal as the chair of the committee?
I've gotten involved with the American College of Cardiology back in 2018, and just throughout the years have networked and gained contacts and mentors throughout the college, which has been really beneficial. Got involved with the cardiovascular team, which is nurses, cardiovascular techs, pharmacists, advanced practice providers, like a real big array of people that are exciting to work with and learn from. So as I got involved with them, they have a communications committee, which the goal of that committee is just to kind of bring together the different work groups of the college and help disseminate help disseminate the content that each of the different work groups are doing, or that the college as a whole is doing, just kind of keeping everyone on board with all the different things that are going on, because the college is huge. So my goal with the committee was really to help boosting the social media platform, engaging more nurses and allied health providers, because historically the college has it has like a really big cardiovascular team, but not as many nurses. So I'm hoping to get more nurses involved, especially on social media and in cardiovascular nursing, really getting them involved, because it's such a great way to share content, to share what you're doing, especially when it comes to, like, if you're doing your own research or you're writing articles. In the past, if you did something, someone would have to subscribe to that article, to that journal, to that website, where now it's like you can share it freely online, which really connects a lot of people.
That is really neat. So if people are listening to us today and they're like, oh my gosh, I love cardiology, I'm a nurse, how do I get involved? What would you tell them?
Definitely. I would say get involved with the American College of Cardiology, join the cardiovascular team. Reach out to me. I'm always tell everyone, email me, message me on social media. I'm always excited to look and get people involved and see, what are you interested in? What are your strengths? Some people one of the things I love about cardiology is that it's very versatile. You can be interested in lipids, you can be interested in the education, the rehab, the revascularization part of it. And there's a place for everybody and their passion. And so we want to help you find that and get plugged in with people who are passionate about that area that you are.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, a topic of debate that I know people would be interested in is how aggressive to be when it comes to a cardiac standpoint in those who are greater than 80, 90 years old. Like, I've heard nurses, asked to take someone off a statin because they turned 81, but yet their life, their 10-year risk score is still very good. So why not keep them on it? Is the other argument.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, it's a very great point. And I always go back to, I was like, we have our guidelines, but which we can go by and are great for our general populations, but we always have to take it case by case.
Right.
There's some really healthy 80-year-olds and there's some really unhealthy 80-year-olds. So
picture and then have that shared decision making, because I'm a nurse practitioner in long-term care, and I've had patients 90 years old who are still playing golf and just doing great. So I've kept them on it. They've had a heart attack recently, I keep them on it.
Definitely. And you never know who's going to roll through the cath lab. I mean, now with people living longer and being healthier, and a lot of it's due to some of these statin medications. I mean, we've had 95 plus patients come in with heart attacks, and we're like, all right, we'll do everything, because they're like, hey, I still live my life. I run around with my grandkids. They're like, just because I'm 95 doesn't mean I've given up. So
yeah,
there's certain patients that it makes sense if the medication's not bothering them. Right?
Yeah.
But it's great conversations to have. Stuff that you really don't think of, like when you read the textbooks or just look at the guidelines. It's for your general population, but then you're like, well, I've got this guy who doesn't really fit any of the rules. What do I do?
Picture. So what's in the store for the future of cardiovascular care? What do you want the future of cardiovascular care to be like?
I think cardiovascular care is growing. It's very dynamic. Cardiovascular disease remains one of the number one causes of death, not only in America, but globally. So, and it's also tied to so many different comorbidities, but the direction of cardiovascular care is really going to multidisciplinary team care, which I love, because it really takes the strengths of each allied health professional, such as nurses, pharmacists, advanced care providers. We have so many clinics now and opportunities for advanced care providers to specialize in heart failure, to specialize in hypertension or arrhythmias, where they can take these patients that have very complex illnesses, specialize in them, and really kind of help to bridge the gap of where our physicians and maybe healthcare systems can't support all these things at once. So multidisciplinary care is great, and it creates so many great opportunities for more nurses to really get involved and work side by side with physicians and just increasing the care for the patients.
I think that is wonderful. I'm telling you right now, in post-acute care, long-term care, one of the top causes of readmission to the hospital is related to heart failure. Okay. And so I didn't realize nurses could specialize in heart failure. I did not know that.
Yes. There's I think it's the Heart Failure Society of America. I haven't gotten involved with them, but they're on my radar. You can get certified in heart failure. You can do fellowship programs with them. It's really amazing to specialize and there's so much new research in those areas, new drugs to learn about. So really helps you stay on top of things.
That is really neat, especially as time goes on. We have more people that are aging, getting old, have more heart failure. And I'm in Southwestern Virginia, but in Roanoke, and we don't always get a cardiologist to take a look at our patients as soon as we'd like to. And by the time they have they're already in the hospital. So this would be a really good service to offer our patients. We need to get that.
Definitely. And these are all great resources to tap into, like, especially like you said, in areas where we don't have backup, we don't have a cardiologist you can just pick up and call, which can be super scary. You're like, oh, it's on me. I got to figure it out. But that's the one thing I love about stuff like Nurse Deck and these societies is you network with people that you're like, okay, I don't have anyone right here right now, but I can call my friend who knows this stuff and they'll be able to tell me and help me out.
Yes, that's right. So is there a topic you would like to mention that we haven't brought up yet?
Man, I could go on forever. I love all things cardiology and PAD, but I love it and really just want to highlight the fact that I think cardiovascular nursing is a great field, and it holds so many opportunities to get involved and to specialize and really feel like you're involved in care and outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to cardiology, just hypertension in itself. I mean, who doesn't have hypertension?
Right.
People have it, and then you have undiagnosed heart failure, and then you mentioned lipids, and then revascularization. There's so much involved with cardiology.
Yes, it's never boring. There's always something new going on.
Well, we thank you for your time today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate your energy and telling us your story. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.